Hey guys, we are live again, and it looks like maybe it's the 20th of the month, right? And so yep, 20th. Technically, it's the next day, but that's okay with the Lather games because the countdown clock is a couple of time zones behind me, that kind of thing. Um, I'm getting in late, and so we're starting late. Today is the Father's Day themed shave, and so it's a shave with the oldest gear that you have. Actually, I should be more specific. It said find a soap that's actually older than you, and so I've expanded that myself to say let's just find the old gear and use that along with the oldest brand of soap that I have. And so the Seaforth brand is definitely older than me. Spearhead Shaving bought the Seaforth brand and came out with a wonderful new soap. Obviously, you're going to have people using Cella today, Williams, those types of soaps for sure. But Seaforth is an old name. I've got an old vintage mug of Seaforth type shaving mug that fits those Williams size pucks, the kind of smaller hard pucks. And so I do have, and it's got that cool little Piper, or he's not a Piper, he's just a Scotsman, I guess. Anyway, terrific. And the performance of this base is amazing. The scent is not meant to be an exact copy of Old Spice, just in the same family, maybe with some modern twists to it, so that even maybe people that are not Old Spice fans might still enjoy it. So that's what we're going to be working with today. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, there we go. Had something in my teeth, my mouth. Old stuff. I thought that I haven't pulled these old Aristocrats out lately, and this is the 15. This is one of the early ones, and this is a UK model, and it is a glorious shaver. And we'll go over maybe toward the end of the shave some ways to differentiate this between other Aristocrats. There are definitely some easy things to look for to help you know what kind of Aristocrat you might be looking at on eBay, or you might actually have in your own possession if you've never bothered to find out. It's a wonderful shaver, obviously an open comb, and those English, the UK versions of the Gillette Aristocrats are phenomenal. Better than the American ones, in my opinion. Now, this is a brush I got in the last few weeks, and it does say a 2 right there, so maybe that means a size 2. And then it says Beau and Brummell. So it's a Beau Brummell Boar brush, and it's got lots of loft compared to its small knot. And I have done a shave with it. Can't remember if it was a real shave or a test lather, but the knot just kind of bends over, very floppy, but it was enjoyable. It was fairly soft. It seems like it hasn't been used very much because not a lot of the tips have split. So it's a very interesting piece, and it's definitely old. The Old Spice, to match the soap, and the brand, of course, is going to be older than me. And I am looking forward to using it. This is the original stuff. They still make it over in India, I believe, in that side of the world, if it's not exactly India. It's not exactly the Shulton Old Spice recipe, of course. That's just been modified. But it is closer than some of the Old Spice stuff you might find in American stores, at least. And I found somebody here in America who had just bought too much of it. They shipped it over from India, and we're just trying to move it on because they realized they just had too much. And for the cologne, the eau de cologne is not only in shaving, but my reading about it was that this is actually one of the oldest brands, the oldest business product brands in history. It is 4711. Now, I didn't even notice that there was stuff printed. It's Germany 4711.com. And I can't tell what the business name is. It says Cologne GmbH, Cologne, Germany. And so I don't know exactly. However, I did look up Ike Kolnick's washer, and that means real what? Real cologne water. So no doubt that's a translation of what's below, original eau de cologne. So I don't know what the company name is. I don't know if 4711 is the company, but it's a neat citrus type scent that has been around for a very long time. And so I thought this one would be, not only it would match the theme of something older than you, indeed, 200 years or so, a little over 200. Yeah. Oh, definitely over 200, over 220 years. Cause I believe the late 1700s was when this was started as a cologne, as a scent by its creator. I think it is what my research helped me to find. While my hands are dry, let's go ahead and put the Nacet in, and we are looking at use number 397. And you can see the one down here, the N up here, and what's left over from the 3 dots that used to be the only signature, kind of to authenticate the blade. And we'll get my face wet. Did not wash my face as usual. So the first pass of the lather is going to take care of that. This is a tremendous soap base. It takes a lot of water. Nice, rich, thick scent. The orange is easy to differentiate, to notice, but there are so many nice spices, vanilla, and other pieces that the orange, it definitely isn't an orange soap. So it's in that family of that seafaring, rich seafaring Old Spice type savory kind of things. I was thinking with this brush, because it's so floppy, I don't really know how well it's going to pick up the soap. I think I'm going to scoop it instead of loading it with a brush. And that way, since this is a kind of an unproven brush, I can make sure that I get enough soap. So I have my little 1/4 teaspoon measure that I use on samples or in these types of cases. Also, if I don't think I'm going to like a soap very much, I'll scoop. And that way, there are definitely some shaving people out here when you go to sell soaps on the used market that enjoy it much more and are attracted to the sale if they know it's been scooped instead of lathered on with a brush. And then you just hook out the little piece. And of course, not all soaps use a 1/4 teaspoon. Most soaps you can get along with less than this. A few, like Holy Cow, Chiseled Faces, Silk Tallow Base. And there's one more that I thought that I found out the other day. And so I'm just pressing it down. It's firm enough to where I need to make sure I don't have any little globules sticking up that'll come loose. So there we go. Less than a 1/4 teaspoon. I'm confident that'll be plenty for this shave. Oh, what a great scent. Kind of wish I would have gotten the aftershave for it. A lot of people are liking the heather as well. The heather soap was maybe a little too feminine for me. At least that's my perception, if I recall correctly. When I got this brush in from eBay, I did my usual, a working over with Williams mug soap to kind of clean it out. And I did get a chance to feel it on my face, and it felt nice and enjoyable. And so that's kind of what I'm expecting now. So look at that kind of splay It's a small knot, but it's long. Those bristles are long. Daily challenge for today is to tell a story about your dad, kind of appropriate for Father's Day. Some cool thing about your dad, a story, good story, bad story, something you learned from your dad, any of that probably relates just fine. My dad was a great example in many ways. He took good care of us. Both my parents worked, and he took on extra jobs, and I'm certain he was just making sure that because both my parents were teachers, they didn't have a ton of money coming in. They just wanted to make sure we were all taken care of. And so I respect that and appreciate that for him. He would drag me out in the middle of Saturday morning, 5 a.m. or something, to go fishing at a lake that was an hour or two away. And for me, as a young kid, I wasn't patient enough to really enjoy fishing. And so for me, it was quite a chore. But he had the wisdom to make it a little more fun. And he would stop and get me a treat on the way. I liked honey buns at the time, glazed, pastries. And so he would let me pick out whatever treats at when we would stop for gas. And he made sure we had some snacks and things like that. I probably scared away more fish than he caught, but I now look on those times with fondness. And they're definitely a great example for me about how, sometimes a hobby or something that you enjoy could be something you have to work at, and for him, it was definitely a labor of love. It was quite a bit of effort to get the boat ready, take it down, drive it to the lake, fill it with gas, put it in the water, that sort of thing. It was a lot of work. It's taken a while for this soft, floppy brush to work the lather, work the soap up out of the bottom of the bowl there. Hey, Zachary, welcome, sir. I don't know if you're a father, but happy Father's Day to you as well. Thank you very much. My wife found a mug at a yard sale this past weekend, maybe Friday or Saturday, that was actually Happy Father's Day. So she got it. And so now I have an official Happy Father's Day mug. And this, as I predicted, Lather's looking great. So now I've got the Happy Father's Day or the You're the Best Father in the World kind of mug to prove my credentials, right? Got to spend the day with my kids doing exactly what I wanted to do, which was nothing. I laid around. I napped. I watched movies. We watched a couple of Marvel movies and some other stuff. There's this other show that they just found where they're putting people in putting some survivalists in the middle of the woods with a fresh kill, and they have to eat from it what they can and then try to survive for 40 days after that. Some neat challenges there. Happy Father's Day. Aloha, Wyatt. Thank you. Thank you. It is Zachary, if you like Old Spice, if you like savory type scents, if you with some orange notes to them, then yeah, it'd be a good one to try. I don't know if he does samples of it, and this lather's looking just phenomenal. I did buy the heather as well, and I bought them right when this was one of those blind buys because I also wanted to support the business. Seaforth stepping out. Spearhead had done so many very successful beta versions of his soap and had arrived at a base that was just terrific. And he just seemed to be a great guy. And I wanted to contribute to his efforts. And so I went ahead and bought both Heather and Spiced. And I did sell the Heather, but I kept the Spice because I'm an Old Spice fan. And I also like this one as well. Yeah, I think, Zachary, a lot of people are in that same boat. You know, my dad, my grandpa, they both had Old Spice. I think my family may have gotten me an English leather cologne bottle first. I don't think they may have ever gotten me Old Spice, but I can definitely remember being at my grandpa's house or in my dad's bathroom, that bottle of Old Spice. Matter of fact, he probably still has a bottle of Old Spice in his medicine cabinet that he may not have touched for 20 years or 30. But yeah, it's there was a campaign once that I think that either it was official, where Old Spice was like, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Old Spice. And they were talking about how your grandpa wore Old Spice, and if he hadn't, then your grandma wouldn't have loved him and wanted to be with him. So that was pretty funny. All right. So let's see if I added too much water. We'll just see. So this is a big floppy Boar brush. It's very soft to the face because the bristles have softened up a good bit. And it's looking like maybe I added too much water to it. Did I get up all the soap from? It looks like I did. And so we'll dip back into there and just add on a little bit with the soap. But of course, what I can do is dip back in. And that'll beef up what's in the brush a little bit. And you can see all that lather that was in the brush is now gone. Perhaps this brush was holding more water than I'm used to, or because this is a soap, I can usually take this far where it's looking like this. And so I'll bet it's the Boar brush. Man, it's almost like a feather on your face. It's so light because of that, the bend in the bristles, that I'm kind of just feeling the sides of the bristles here. Be interesting to see. I'm enjoying the ergonomics of the handle pretty well. The feel is kind of curious. So I might use this, put this in my rotation and just see how this long throw develops. You can see it's now thickening up. So what I can do is go back and get a little bit more of the wet stuff that's in the bowl and use it to, yeah, there we go. That's nice. I, of course, bought it with the knowledge that I really enjoyed the handle. I think I got a really good deal on it. I really enjoyed the handle. And so if the knot didn't work out, or if it looked too old or dirty or whatever, I could yank it and put something more modern in there, something enjoyable, maybe even another Boar brush, either way, and be able to carry on the use of the handle. But I think I'm really kind of interested in how this knot's going to act after a while. So we've got an old brush and an old label of soap. Let's see how it shaves. And we've got an old razor, the 15 from Aristocrat from Gillette, and it's the United Kingdom model, probably rhodium plated, something like that. I've really enjoyed it as a shaver. Of course, we've got the old Nacet in it, so it'll be curious how, oh man, the slickness here is just terrific. I think I had a lather that was a little bit too thick yesterday, and so I'm really enjoying the precision feel and the glide that I'm getting here. It's not pasty. The lather's not pasty at all. A little bit of a tugging sensation, but no big deal. Sometimes if it tugs too much, what I'll do is I'll make it a lather pass where I'm not doing all this buffing. Like I'll just go through kind of like that, where I just do it once everywhere, you know. Can I rinse? Yeah. Now, since I had a little bit of an issue with a really wet lather there, I'm going to go ahead and just dab my face with my hand towel. And that way, I won't be adding any more water to the lather. All right, let's see what pass 2 looks like. Oh, I didn't squeeze out my goatee. That could kill it. There were some Omega brushes, the modern Omega Boar brushes that have really long lofts. And I know that the barbers would actually choke up on them and grab part of the bristles. See, I'm up on the bristles, and that way they could confine them, and then they wouldn't be so lofty. They wouldn't have all that lag. I don't think this is a brush you would normally do that with. Yeah, I don't have too many badgers that eat lather myself. I think sometimes I attribute that to user error. I think maybe I have not worked the lather up into the knot and allowed maybe a little bit of water to remain in the bristles. Like maybe when I was mixing it up in my bowl, I didn't flex it enough to really get the water to meet the soap really well, you know, or I didn't mix it long enough so that I got a really good homogeneous mixture. I usually attribute that to my own issues with when it's a badger. Now, when it's a young boar that hasn't broken in, I do attribute that often to the boar brush to some extent, but I haven't really noticed it with my stuff with the badger. But I'm not writing your experience off, that's for sure. All right. And we'll go ahead and switch to cross grain. So this is a comfortable pass. I'm happy with that. There's that drippy wet lather. Slick is terrific. And there we go with pass 2. Oh, and again, I think I'm very glad that I kind of dabbed the lather off before. Oh, that scent. There are some spices in here I don't like, but then what's happening is those guys are helper notes. And so they're actually, I like them in this particular mix because they are assisting other nice notes and adding more depth to them, you know, like a clove or something like that. That's not a scent that I normally like, but it's being held in check with the vanilla and the orange and that sort of thing. And so I end up thinking that it's just fine. I think maybe this brush was holding more water, you know, than I thought. That could be part of the issue. And it's a wet lather. It's dripping, but as you can see, all we need is just a little light, thin layer with a good quality shaving soap. You don't need big old thick grandpa clouds of lather. Like people think you need that because everybody starts with the foam from Walmart, you know. Okay, now we're going to do a cross grain from the opposite side, and then we'll do the against the grain. I think we'll do just a neck only pass, and see you can just kind of feel, and it is wet and slippery. We are dripping and it's messy, and I look at it like a statue in Central Park, right? But it is slick. Hey, Peter. Zachary, there you go. Yeah, you learn to compensate and add more soap with that kind of lather eating brush. Yeah. And like I mentioned, I think a couple of times when I have, that's happened to me, it's been because I had a goatee. If my goatee hair gets a little too long, it can actually hold a good bit of water. And then that would just flush as I was working it, drip down into the lather and change it from perfection to overly wet. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was true, if that was what was going on for me. All right, we are cutting it a little bit close. I do have about an hour and 10 minutes to finish up the shave and do the write-up. Oh yeah, let's dab and get the goatee. So we'll be all right tonight. All right, let's find the bend in the blade. It's on the opposite side, so I'm going to use the nice clean side for this with the grain. We'll see how this, it's been comfortable up to this point, and so many of the razors I've used in the lather games have been, but this is being kind of grabby and tuggy in a lightly painful way, and so I am not enjoying that pass there. So this is not a great, now I'm sure that I'm going to end up with a quality shave, with a nice close shave because of that against the grain right here. Yeah, oh yeah, I can feel it. It's much better cut than most of the other areas. So it's doing the job. And at least the irritation only lasts while I'm doing the movements. I take the razor away, it's gone, empty and terrific. Yesterday, Peter, I did get it posted. I was an hour and a half after the deadline, but I don't know how concrete the deadline is. It may cost me, significantly in the points if it's a super firm deadline. It's hard to say. Yeah, hey, let's recap for the folks who have joined now. We've got the Aristocrat 15 from the United Kingdom. And this is we're stepping back to the olden days with today's shave. Use a soap brand that is older than you is the goal. And so I have the Seaforth brand. And the Seaforth brand was bought recently by Spearhead Shaving. And so that's a wonderful soap. I'm enjoying the spiced today. I love it. The heather was a little bit feminine for me, but a lot of guys are loving that as well, especially the EDC, the cologne. A lot of times those and the splash. And he came out with a new one, a Sea Spice Lime. I do want to try that at some point myself. The brush is a vintage Beau Brummell Boar brush. I've got a bunch of bees there. It is a long lofted knot. The ratio is quite leaning toward the lofty end of the spectrum there. And so it's got tons of flop, but it's very comfortable because it doesn't have too much, the prickliness in the tips. There's none of that. And so it's bending over a lot and you're feeling the sides of the brush, but it's very comfortable and enjoyable. Yeah. It's a Beau Brummell, and the size, I assume it's the size. It says the number 2. Here is the little thing there, Beau Brummell. And it looks very much like a brush that's quite old. So that's why I chose it for today. And then, oh yeah, nice close shave right there. Very good, very good. So we're going to hit the neck with the Old Spice. Let's see how it blends with the Spearhead, with the Seaforth spiced. And here's the funny thing. Putting on a scent like this, where they're so similar, you often get a mathematical type of experience. If your nose has gotten used to a certain group of notes throughout the shave, like maybe this soap has provided, then sometimes you don't pick those up in the new part that you're adding in, and you notice the differences. And so that's why using Old Spice after a citrus soap is going to have a whole different experience often than using it after maybe a rich vanilla type soap, that sort of thing, something in a different family. So this is the, isn't it funny? They call it an aftershave lotion, but we all know it's a splash. It's definitely not a lotion of any sort, right? It's not creamy in any way. That is interesting. Yeah, a lot of I think the spiced is a little sweeter than the Old Spice. There is a note. There is a note in there that's being different. Maybe it's in the green family, but it's got maybe some herbs with it too. And that's what's really jumping out at me right now. Now it is pulling up memories, and it is associated with that. So it's not totally strange to me, but that's very interesting. Well, very cool. Wonderful shave, as I suspected. The soap, even when it was super wet. See, it's a high quality soap. And even when you get those guys overly wet, they still deliver in the slickness department. And you still get a good, nice, close shave. All right. How much water did we use? 26 milliliters. And then as the cologne, put my cap back on. As a kid, as a little boy, I always loved these stopper friction style caps in the Old Spice. Something about that little thing going in the hole and the way it maybe because I'm a Lego fan and it really kind of felt like that kind of experience. I don't know. I just was always enthralled with that. We have 4711, one of the oldest products in the world. Before 1800, I think is what it was saying online. And it is citrus and maybe a little bit of floral, maybe a little bit of greenery. I think online it said maybe 7 notes were in the scent. And so I'm very interested to see how what kind of change it might lend to the Old Spice. So that's what we're using. And this is a German cologne that was created so long ago. And we'll go ahead and put the Nacet away. Give it, nope, it got a good rinse already. Put it over here on the washcloth. So today is use number 397. 3 more to hit the big 400. And while I enjoy the Old Spice around me right now, and I let my face kind of recover after the shave before I put the cologne on, let's talk a little bit about the razor. With the English Aristocrats, there are different sets. And the first thing to notice is that the number, whether this is a 15, a 66, a 16, a 21, that is the set number. It doesn't apply to the razor necessarily. And so you could have a set number 15. This is a 15, but I think there are also a few rare solid bar 15s that are actually different razors. And it's just set number that's important. And so that's why some of these are a bit of a mystery, because the set number's never on the razor. The set number's on the box, the shipper, it's called. That and so that's how to know exactly what it was. And so most people don't have those shipper boxes with their razors. And so you can sometimes a certain model razor would be included in multiple shippers. Whether it's a 21 or a 15, or there are some solid bars that I think could be a 15 or a 21. I think is an example of one of those cases. The Vinny, hey man, haven't seen you in a while. I'm glad you're jumping in here on the live. Seaforth scent strength. I love how strong it is. I'd say it's maybe a 6 or a 7 out of 10, and I give most other soaps usually 4s, that kind of thing. So for me, at least relatively speaking, it's above average, and I really like it. It's exactly right for me. So some things to look at as you might want to try to figure out and try to identify your Aristocrat. Number 1, is it open comb or closed comb? That's easy enough to see. Number 2, you can look at the center bar. This one has these T's at the end, and that's how many of them started out. And then they came out with this gimmick of killing the T's and putting a little notch right there so that you could take a specially designed blade holder thing, stick the notch up in it, and pull the blade out without having to touch the blade. And so the unnotched, this is unnotched because you have those flare T-shaped things there. This is unnotched. Another thing to look at is the flat base plate, the solid base plate, top and bottom. Now, this is not solid. There's 2 different layers of metal going on there. But with the cheaper models, the less expensive models, there will be a diamond bevel. The hole here in the center will be down maybe 3 millimeters or something like that in a diamond shape bevel. And the diamond will be on the other side as well. And you can see that from the bottom too. And so this, the more expensive ones, the earlier models have this solid base plate. And I often find that those shave a little bit better. And let's see, another identifying mark, this right here, this little band between the main knurling area and the turning knob. When it is basically flush with these 2 surfaces, then that will tell you something. When it is indented, then that tells you something too. And so, for instance, I can look at just this part of the razor, and I know it's not a 16, even without checking whether it's an open comb. The open comb tells me it's not a 16. But the 16 has an indented area here because the knob could, when it's all the way loose, it could go all the way up and touch it, kind of thing. There's none of this flat part right here. Also, look at the end of it. Is it a domed shape with no hole, meaning it's a solid knob? This one obviously is a hollow knob. And the 15s have the hollow knobs. And so those are some traits you can look at. Many people, of course, will first look at the patent numbers on the bottom. And so many of these vintage razors from England have the 430030 patent number right there. And people get online and you look. And I, of course, did this too when I was early on. I looked up that number, and that number, that patent applies to many, many models. And so it's not a help. It's not a big help. I mean, it can isolate a few, but there are so many that use that same patent number. So I'm afraid that's not too much of an identifier. So the ones that I already gave you are really the key identifiers. Hollow handle, the flushness of this little section above the knob, and the open combness. The base plate, whether it's a flat base plate or solid base plate, that's synonymous in this case, or whether it's a diamond bevel base plate there. And the notched or unnotched. This is unnotched because it has those flared things. I wish they would have kept those because those really enhance the blade aligning properly in the razor. But they gave those up because of the using that little gimmicky trick with the razors. And unfortunately, we lost that. And a lot of times the notched, and I believe it was back in 1940, 49 or 50, 51, somewhere around there is when some of the models switched over from notched to unnotched. And so sometimes that will at least give you a range to specify there. And then there are also some razors, when closed, the 15, the doors touch. There are other models where there's a little trough left, a little groove here, because that center bar, you can actually see the top of the center bar whenever the razor is closed. And so that's another easily identifying mark, a trait to look for. And there you go. Those are some things to help you identify your Aristocrat if you're having trouble. Yeah, there was some confusion. I explained earlier with the sets and how the set numbers sometimes don't match the razor because they would put different razors in different set boxes, that sort of thing. And that made it very good for them because they were able to sell things in certain ways, but it made a really big hassle for us in keeping track and identifying these razors. And so they did kind of confuse it. However, the quality of their workmanship is just amazing. And these are a little expensive sometimes, but to me, it's like a piece of jewelry. Some guys don't have a problem spending some money on a good watch that they only wear once a month when they go out and want to look nice. But if you buy one of these guys, you could use it every day and enjoy that beauty and high function. The smoothness, the shave of this razor is wonderful. It clamps down because of the doors here and where everything is, because of that big base plate, that big solid base plate. It does a great job of clamping down right near the edge of the blade. And so it gives you that smooth shave that I am a huge fan of. All right. Now, the first versions of these were made by Americans first, and then Gillette started making them over in the UK. And our first versions were open combs as well. The 16 I'm going to use here soon. It'll be very similar to this, but I believe it has a solid knob, and it has a closed comb up here. But it's a wonderful shaver as well. I may like the 15 a little bit better. All right. I dropped my little cloth here, so I wanted to pick that up before I forgot about it. Okay. Yeah, see, I think this brush held more water than I was thinking. Maybe I soaked it in water that was a little too deep and some got up into the handle, and then later on it came down, because as I'm letting this sit, I'm seeing some water still kind of coming out of the knot. And so, yeah, the answer to this one would be work it quite a bit, or just run it a little bit drier so that as that water continues to come out of the brush, then it's met with soap to keep the ratio in the right zone. All right. As you might expect, the Old Spice is matching really well with the Seaforth Spiced. The Seaforth is more, the orange is more noticeable. It's still not like I'm putting on a fruit stand, because of all the spices and cool stuff. But the vanilla is a little bit more noticeable, but they both play very well together. It's a wonderful match. I am able to pull some different things from the actual Old Spice itself. All right, now let's do let's bring in the citrus. So this is parts of it are in the citrus family. And so in a sense, perhaps it can kind of cling to those types of notes, the citrus parts. And I'm just going to rub it. Started out in my palm, so I'm kind of going to lose the Old Spice a little bit. And then just kind of rub my palms on my wrists. And that way I'll be able to kind of, oh, grassy, citrus. Yeah, kind of a lemongrass might be a way to say it, but the lemon is very accurate. It really does feel like a nice tasting gourmand kind of lemon with some very light background accents. No, and they're anchoring it. They're giving it a little more of an earthy quality. And that's matching really well with the Old Spice. Pretty cool. Yeah, Zachary, give that a shot. With that particular badger you have that kind of tends to eat lather, yeah, it's okay to go a little bit drier with it and see what happens. Definitely. Because it could have a way of holding that water that, you just have to compensate for by running the lather just a bit drier. Yeah. All right, guys. Terrific. So this is the 20th shave of the Lather games. We've only got 10 more. We're on the downhill side. How about that? And they just released, I was just listening earlier today to the Lather Games podcast, I guess maybe the third episode of it. They typically maybe do it on either Friday night or Saturday morning and then release it on Sunday, something like that. And it's neat. It's if you want to get online and go to Reddit, r wet shaving, the subreddit there, and look in that sub for that. You can listen to it on SoundCloud or YouTube if you want. There's some coarse language, and it's guys online, right? So sometimes there's some gross talk, and I'm not putting that down, but I just want to do fair warning in case there's somebody out there watching with sensitivities toward that. Decency sensitivities, we'll say that, right? But they do highlights about some of the shaves during the week, and sometimes I really enjoy listening to it. All right. That's right, Zach. Peter's making a great point that even if you go a little drier and you happen to go too much with the soap, a little too dry, then you can just tweak it by adding a little bit more water. Or, hey, Zach, if you want to, if you discover that badger is swallowing your lather there and it feels super wet on your face, you do two things. Just what I did tonight. You can go back to the soap for just maybe 3 seconds, 4 seconds. And then if you go too much more, like 10 seconds, then what you find is you've got too much soap and now you have to re-add more water. And then put that to your face, like 3 seconds, and then put that on your face and work that in. Sometimes that can help your lather to equalize and you have a nice creamy feel to it. Then also between the passes, just dab your face dry so that your face is almost sucking a little bit of the water out of the lather and making it more creamy and more enjoyable for you. But yeah, Peter's exactly right. And I think, somebody was talking about how they're using, I think it was maybe Seth, how they were using a little mister if they want to add some water to your face. A lot of people will take the brush and just dip it into some water like in the sink. You can do that, obviously. That's a traditional way. You can just dribble some water in it if you want to do that. You can also just spray your face. And one nice thing about that is it doesn't, since it's distributed, it doesn't just immediately drip down, and it's easy to work that in your face. I tried that for a while, but it just didn't really feel like the right vibe of as that I wanted to have when I was shaving, but it was very effective. Okay, Peter. Yeah. Okay. And some of those misters are kind of neat. I was using one of those, cheap ones from the Dollar Tree that you might use to spray the dishes, or not the dishes, to spray your plants or something like that. All right, let us clean up. I've got some nice smells. I didn't know if this guy would step in with some weird notes and kind of ruin the wonderful Seaforth and Old Spice type savoriness of the shave, but it hasn't. It's there's some woody grassiness to it, like resinous grassiness, in addition to the lemony citrus. And that lemon, that nice lemon that I told you about, that's burned away now. That's obviously a top note. And so now we're left with those other pieces. And this is a terrific matchup with the Old Spice. Especially some people might like and I might be one of them, the savoriness, the thickness of the Seaforth, the heaviness, the richness of that scent. And then they may not want to carry that necessarily with them for hours after the shave. It might be too heavy for that purpose. And I think this cologne here, this 4711, is a great way to transition into something similar, but a little bit lighter that you might enjoy more for the rest of your day. Okay. Yeah. Fine cosmetics, mister. Okay. Gotcha. There you see, I knew somebody had sent me a link to it, and I had never really seen those cosmetic misters before. Yeah. Oh, okay. Zachary, you tried using a mister. Gotcha. You didn't like it all too much. Understood. All right. Well, I'm going to pack it up. I did end up with a little bit extra. So I think the 1/4 teaspoon was enough to do the job because we did it. But it's not a ton more. And so this may be because, well, I also know that this soap base has some nice, good things for your skin. And so those are probably keeping it from being a really concentrated soap like Sterling or something like that, where you can maybe even use 1/8 of a teaspoon and get a number of passes for your shave. But a little bit less than 1/4 teaspoon was just the right amount. And so if you're ever in doubt with having trouble dialing in a Seaforth lather made by Spearhead, the new one, then get out a little 1/4 teaspoon measure, press that into the bottom of a bowl, and that's enough soap for you to get your job done. Well, of course, I did 4.5 passes with it. So maybe it's more generous than we thought, since your average person doesn't do that many passes. All right. Well, very good. Very good. Happy. I'll go ahead and clean up a few things. And if anybody has any questions, just jump in. So here's what the brush looks like without any lather on it. Very floppy. I do not let the puck dry fully before I put the top back on. That's a very popular question in wet shaving in general, and you'll find all spectrum of answers. There's some people who put the top right on right away. There are some people who let it sit out for a whole 24 hours to make sure they're not leaving any moisture in the soap when they seal it up because they're afraid of bacteria. Well, the fact is that soap in general is a very hard place for bacteria to grow. Now, we do have a little bit to be concerned about with some of the newer soaps where they're super fatting the soaps, where not all the fats are getting turned by the lye or whatever ingredient into the soap. There are some fats that are left over, and so they could go rancid after a number of years. And so that could potentially have mold issues. And so there is some validity to some of those claims sometimes. However, my policy is somewhere in between. I let it sit out for about half an hour, and that usually ends up to be during the course of the shave. And so you'll often see me after I load, I'll take that soap, I'll rinse out the threads so I don't get soap buildup. I'll put the soap down somewhere. Usually I have that shelf on the other bathroom, and I will put that soap right there, leave it uncovered, and it loses a little bit of moisture during the shave, and I'm happy with that. It's still got some moisture, but I don't care. After the shave, I screw it down and lock it down. And one of my big reasons for doing that is scent retention. If you let it sit out for 24 hours every time after you use it, I just think it's going to you're going to lose that scent strength in a significant way, a noticeable way, and that is not what I'm about. If there are not very many soaps out there that are strengthed more than I can handle. Most of them are less, and so I want to preserve all the strength that I can. And so that's why I arrived at kind of a middle ground. I let it be open during the course of the shave. So that's sometimes half an hour, sometimes it's 40 minutes. But at the end of the shave, I seal it up. That's my personal philosophy. But I think people have good reasons for any point on the spectrum in general. And so do whatever makes you happy, some people just have to be OCD and have to leave it open for a while, that sort of thing. If you use the same soap over and over and you're a 24-hour person, then obviously you're never capping up your soap. But if that's the way you want to do it, then do it that way. Going to go work this on a towel for a little bit. And so, yeah, these long, floppy bristles, they're not really starting to splay out yet. I really have to work them to get them to splay out. Some of them are definitely clipped, and some of them, do we have any splits yet? It's hard to, I think I do have a couple of splits, but sometimes when it's wet, it's harder to notice those. But even many of the clipped hairs, even they will split eventually, is my understanding. Yeah, that's true. If you scoop it with a teaspoon or some other type of object, then yeah, you don't really have to worry about mold too much with that. And so you might as well just, seal it up right away to preserve that scent. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people make a big deal, an overly big deal, a mountain out of a molehill with their complaints about the worries about molding, that sort of thing. I think there have been soaps that have molded, but I think in most cases, it's because the manufacturer did something wrong. They mixed up the soap with the wrong chemicals, and it was a defect of the soap and not a fact of leaving it with moisture in it. Is what my reading and research has led me to kind of think. But if you like to just scoop it, no reason to stop. Do your own thing. But there is something visceral to me about loading from directly on the puck. It just seems like the kind of vibe that I want. The part of the shaving experience that I want to be a part of my shaving experience. And so usually I will load from the puck, and I'll scoop it if I think I might sell it. Or in this case, I was unsure how long it would take this particular brush to get me enough soap to get enough that I needed. So then I scooped it today. Okay, Vinny says that in his experience, capping it when wet degrades lather production. I suppose that could be possible. Yeah, I haven't had that problem at all. Matter of fact, many of the soaps will do better when they have a little bit of the water resident, like Mitchell's Wool Fat, those hard soaps, Mitchell's Wool Fat, Martin de Condré, those types really do better when they have a little bit of moisture left over from the previous day. They're a lot easier to load, and that kind of thing. But yeah, Vinny's experience is a little different with some of the soaps that he's using. All right, very cool. I've got a write-up to go do, a little bit of time to do it. I'm sure we'll be fine. And I think we'll draw this one to a close. Thank you so much, guys, for joining in. And it'll be interesting now that we're on the downhill with 10 more shaves to do after this one. I'm thinking about, do I want to keep live shaving after the month is done, after the games are done. I can't pause to do things during a live shave, so that's kind of an issue sometimes, but I sure do enjoy talking with you guys. Yeah, Zachary, see you next time. Peter, all you guys who joined in, it was really good to talk to you. All right, now, take care. We'll see you next time. We capped this one off right almost exactly at an hour, so that feels right. See you next time. See you on use number in Lather Games number 21, and tomorrow will be use number 398. How about that? All right. Good night, guys.